Hey, welcome to UK Wildcraft. So today I'm going to be showing you how to make apple and rowan jelly, which is a really good jelly to go with like cold cuts of meat and cheese as well. So you will need caster sugar, the amount depending on how much liquid you get after you've boiled the rowan and the apples. You also need apples. I'm using ones that there's a mixture of ones from my garden and some that I've foraged. And you can also use like crab apples as well. It's just the pectin you need from them. And also you obviously need rowan berries, which come from the mountain ash tree. If you don't know how to ID these or how to pick them, then I have got a video on that as well. There'll be a link to that in the top corner of your screen. There are a lot of berries out that look quite similar to these, so make sure you're getting the right ones, and you can ID them from my other video. You will also need a decent sized pan, like a jam making pan with a solid bottom, and you will also need some muslin or some fine meshed cloth, or you can use a jelly bag as well, but I find muslin the best. You'll want to use about the equal amount of rowan berries to apples as well, so if you pick say about 1 kilo of rowan, then use 1 kilo of apples as well. You don't need to peel the apples, because we're just using them for the pulp, and then we'll strain them because we're making a jelly. I do core them though. I don't think you have to, but I generally do for my recipe. These berries are very high in vitamins C and E, and they're also full of antioxidants as well, so they're quite a good berry. They are actually slightly toxic to eat raw, so don't eat them straight off the tree, but once they're cooked they're absolutely fine. So that's why we cook them for making a jelly. So I've peeled and roughly chopped the apples and added them into the pan with rowan berries. I've taken as much of the stalk off as possible of the rowan berries, and I gave them a rinse first. But it doesn't matter if you don't have to get all of the stalk off, because you're going to be passing them through a muslin or jelly bag later. So we're going to be getting rid of all the pulp. Then you just cover them with water, just enough to cover all of the fruit, and put them on to boil. And then you just leave it for probably about half an hour, maybe a little bit longer, just enough to get all the fruit broken down into it's a bit of like a mush. So yeah, just leave that, cover it, and leave it for about half an hour, just checking that it doesn't boil over. Okay, so it's been left to simmer now for just over half an hour. And you see it's all nicely broken down, all the apples gone to mush. So what most people would do now is pass all of this through together through a jelly bag or muslin. And that'll take a long time. You'd have to leave that overnight. So what I do instead is just pass this through a sieve to separate the liquid from the pulp, and then pass it through a jelly bag, and that saves a hell of a lot of time for me. So what I'll do is just get a sieve in a separate pot, and then pass all the liquid through that. So let the liquid drain out. And I'll take a bit longer just to separate the liquid from the pulp there, and then add it to this liquid, and then I'll pass this through my muslin, so you get the nice clear liquid then. So after you've drained the liquid from the pulp, this is what you're left with. It's basically the juice from the rowan and the apples, and this is the pulp left over, and this can be discarded. Not going to use that anymore. And what you do next is you get your pan, get your original pan with colander in it, and you get your muslin. Just put it over the colander and carefully pour your liquid, trying not to let any spill out. Now your muslin will hold back any pulp that's left in the liquid, and you just leave that to drain through. You don't want to rush it. You don't want to squeeze the muslin, because that will leave you with an unclear jelly in the end. It'll have bits in it. So just leave that now until all of the. You might need to lift up the colander, maybe suspend it on something else, but yeah, just leave that now to do its work, and then come back when all the liquid is drained through. Okay, so yeah, that's done already. That only took about 10 minutes, and you're still left with the muslin. It's still got the rest of the pulp left in there, so you can discard that. And what you're left with in the pan is your liquid. Now you want to measure that out. Just get in a measuring jug. Now whatever you've got liquid wise, you want about 3/4 of that of sugar. So say you've got a litre of liquid, you want about 750 grams of your caster sugar. So we've got just under a litre there, so I'm going to use about 700 grams of caster sugar. So put that back in the pan. Caster sugar. Now a gram is about the same as a milliliter, so you can use the same measurement. You don't have to use your scales. You can just chuck that in there. So if you get 700 ml of sugar, that is 700 milliliters. So there's 700 grams. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to add that into the liquid and put it back on the heat. I'll put it on a low heat to start with, just so it doesn't burn the sugar, and then I'll get it onto a rolling boil. Okay, so all the sugar's melted into the liquid now, so there's no risk of it burning. So I'm going to turn the heat up and let it reach a rolling boil. And when it's boiling, time it for about 10 minutes. That's usually about enough. And what I do is I keep a plate in the fridge so it goes cold. And to test it, what I do is put a little bit of the jelly onto the plate and just push it with your finger. And if you get a skin forming on the jelly, then it's reached its setting point and it's ready. So it ended up taking about 20 minutes. So what you do is just get your plate out of the fridge, just get a bit on your spoon, and just tip it onto the plate. And because the plate's cold, it'll help it form a skin, so you can check that it's reached the boiling point. Then you can just hold it up vertically, and it doesn't drip straight off. That's how you know it's ready. So make sure you've got some nice clean sterilised jars, and then you just get your liquid and pour it in. So it's already started to set. Just make sure you label it a month in the year. And you keep it in the fridge. It stores for a long time. It should keep for several months. Here's some I made earlier in the year. This one's actually from July, which is actually very early for Rowan, but I found a few trees that produce early. And you'll see it's a nice clear, bright red colour. And yeah, this goes really well with cold cuts of meat, and cheese and biscuits as well, goes well with that.